Hello, and welcome to the first episode of the J&J podcast. We're your two hosts. I'm Jack.
I'm Josh.
And we're going to be sitting in a recording studio every Monday at 8 p.m. talking endlessly about domestic and foreign politics. So let's get into it.
How you doing, Jack?
I'm doing great, Josh. How about you? Are you excited for
getting the giggles out? You look good, dude. You look healthy. Keeping well.
God, you're just making me all giddy. This is our first podcast of many, Josh. Tell us, who are you? Who am I? What are we doing here?
I'm Josh. I'm a marketing student at Northeastern University with a minor in political science that I already completed. Wow. Yeah, look at me with a slight flex. Yeah, I'm just excited to do this podcast, talk about politics. Jack and I are always having random conversation about politics, philosophy, you name it. And we kind of now have an outlet to do that, and people won't call us cringe. So
yeah, I'm excited. I'm Jack. I'm a second-year business and political science, minor in international affairs. And yeah, we're just excited to get started.
All right.
So before we start, really quickly, what kind of stuff are we actually going to be talking about? Can you, what are your thoughts here?
Well, today we're going to be talking about the 2022 election.
Yeah, November
that's coming
8th.
up.
Go out and vote.
So we'll be talking about a lot of election stuff, especially as elections are coming closer. But we're also interested in bigger domestic policies, like whatever you name it, healthcare, education, yada yada yada. Jack is very knowledgeable on international affairs, and I'd like to think I'm somewhat knowledgeable on it. So we'll talk about that as well.
Yeah.
So yeah,
let's get started. Okay. So predictions about the 2022 elections. We've been talking about this for many months.
Yeah.
Recently, it's been shifting towards Democrats. I remember a couple months ago, maybe 6 months ago, actually, we had been talking about how there's no way that Democrats gain any seats in the House or the Senate.
Yeah.
It's common that they never win seats in the midterms. This really never happens. So yeah, I want to get what's your take on this? Why is this shift happening? 538 gives them a 69 in 100 chance of gaining seats in the Senate.
Yeah, having the Senate majority, or having
Senate
majority, right? Or is it a Senate majority
yes.
and Senate
Senate majority, a 69 in 100 chance.
Okay, nice. Yeah.
While they give about equal chance to Republicans for retaining the House. Actually, I think it's a bit higher.
A
bit higher for them.
It's around 80%.
Oh wow. Yeah.
Yeah. So, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, here's my take on the situation. I think there's multiple reasons as to why this shift has favored Democrats lately. One is passing lots of bills.
Yep.
Right? President Biden's approval rating has been going up. They've passed the CHIPS Act, gun control bills, student loan forgiveness is a big one. We can circle back to this if you want to talk about it. Gas prices going down. I don't know how much you think that actually impacts it versus everything else.
Yeah.
Some people say gas is all that matters here.
Yeah.
I kind of don't totally disagree.
Yeah.
So do you want to talk about that before we get into the next biggest reason?
Well, I think it's the support for the presidential administration is pretty reflective of how people are going to go out and vote, right? Mm-hmm. And if we're looking at this, like at the beginning of the summer, we were looking at this, gas prices were way up. We had the conflict in Russia and Ukraine was much more talked about, and people especially on the conservative side, were very angry with like the support, whatever. There was a lot of things that people disagreed with or didn't like about Biden, and he's kind of slowly been able to regain some ground, and that's helped Democrats. And I think, the big thing that I don't think you even mentioned was Roe v. Wade.
Yes,
which we've talked about this, which is, Roe v. Wade being overturned. Most people, objectively, whether you agree or disagree, most people in the United States disagree with the overturn of Roe v. Wade. Mm-hmm. So that's given a lot of groundwork for Democrats in these elections because it gives them something to talk about. And actually, we'll get into this with Mark Kelly's election, but his opponent, what's his name again? I always forget.
Blake Masters.
Blake Masters. Yeah, Blake Masters. He started to roll back his pro-life rhetoric because it's so unpopular in Arizona. So yeah, I think that's the big thing.
Yeah, and I think that reflects. We saw a couple of weeks ago, Kansas voted to keep abortions legal. Kansas, a city which, in my view, is very Republican. Yeah. By 60 to 40%, and this election cycle, November 8th, will see the biggest referendum on abortion ever. Actually, I think it's 5 states that will have to vote. People will go to the polls voting to see if they can keep abortion in their state or codify it. So Vermont and California will vote to codify it. Yeah. And you can see, as you said, Blake Masters, Oz in Pennsylvania, and many other Republican candidates are backtracking on what they said about abortion, because if a state like Kansas is voting to keep it, then who knows what's going to happen in their race, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think another thing, I was reading an article on this. Mitch McConnell has expressed apparently internal frustration that Republicans have put up such quote unquote weak candidates, which, again, I don't disagree with that. I think that the Democratic candidates in a lot of these Senate races are stronger for their side than the Republican ones are for them. We'll talk about this. Dr. Oz, he's had with all the money he has, very poor race so far. There's a lot of weak Republican candidates, the stuff you mentioned as well.
For weak candidates also, I mean, from a Republican standpoint, right? You're sitting there 6 months ago. Biden's approval ratings were something like 30 to very low 40%, right? They're tanking. Gas prices are going up. Inflation's going up. Biden is not a popular president at all at that moment in time. So, of course, the predictions had Republicans getting both the Senate and the House. So why not put a more divisive, maybe a little more radical, someone who will get things that as a Republican you might want to actually happen.
Yeah.
Right? But he might not be as PG, or he might be alienating some in the center or everyone on the left.
Yeah.
Right. So it was a strategic blunder, you could say.
Yeah, for sure.
Because they didn't expect this to happen.
I
right?
see you've written down here something that I really want to talk about, which is Dark Brandon.
Yeah, no one.
I'd love to talk about Dark Brandon. I'd love to hear your thoughts on Dark Brandon. I sure get a kick out of it.
Should we explain what that actually? Do you want to explain what that is?
Yeah, I can explain very quickly
viewers?
what it is. So Dark Brandon is a internet meme, and it's essentially a play on Biden's age and at the time his lack of action, because people view him as like a pretty inactive president. So once he started doing more divisive things, changing his rhetoric, being a bit more anti-Republican, passing some better in the eyes of Democrats legislation, leftists and liberals on the internet started the Dark Brandon meme. So it's essentially a covert alias for Joe Biden. He's Dark Brandon, and he's there to do the left wing socialist movement. So that's Dark Brandon.
And what's funny about that, I'm pretty sure you know this, is Dark Brandon actually was kind of hijacked from the Republican movement, because it used to be F Brandon is kind of what it started as F Brandon. That's what they would say. They would have
or Let's Go Brandon, right?
Yes, and F Brandon.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So it would be, they would put it in the back of trucks and doing signs and whatever, showing, hey, we don't like what he's doing.
Yeah.
Right? And the left-leaning people, Democrats, kind of hijacked it into their own movement.
Yeah.
How much do you actually think this is playing into it? Because it's a funny meme. We're on Twitter, probably too much.
Yeah.
We love seeing the pictures of Biden with his eyes, like.
Yeah. The Joe Biden with his fist raised and the red, behind him, like he's Emperor Palpatine from Star Wars.
Evaporating his enemy.
No, I think it doesn't really matter. I think some people are very terminally online. So they don't realize that what's going on online isn't really reflective of the of the biggest or of the big voting population in America. Yeah. But you have something. I think you were telling me that then the people who are running the White House Twitter are familiar with the Dark Brandon memes. Even Biden himself is familiar with the Dark Brandon memes. He finds it amusing. And you think, or I actually would agree based on what's been happening on the White House Twitter, how they staged his latest speech, that they are playing into the Dark Brandon thing, the meme, and they're trying to kind of get people on their side with it, but I don't know if it's good optics.
I don't know how much you can attribute to them actually playing into the meme, but they have noticed that Biden being more actually quote unquote doing stuff, right? Passing popular bills or passing things that maybe some people on the right aren't totally okay with. Yeah. More aggressively and more vocally, and kind of having this like presidential stance, honestly.
Yes.
Because before he was, I don't know. He didn't show up a lot.
Yeah, he didn't. So I would definitely suggest that you guys, the listeners at home, go and look into the Dark Brandon memes if you haven't. But do you want to get into the more of the specifics of some of the important Senate races? Yeah, let's start with I think our personal favorite, Fetterman and Oz in Pennsylvania. Yeah, this is a race between Fetterman, who is a Democrat. He is progressive. Yet, we're going to have to talk about this. He doesn't look like a progressive, at least not what I would imagine a progressive looks like, right? He's
6'9" ginormous man.
Yeah.
He has tattoos. If you guys don't know, on his left arm he has the tattoos of the zip code of the city where he was a mayor, and on the right, he has the dates of every single person in that city that was murdered while he was mayor.
Yeah.
To kind of show that I care about this. Like I'm branding myself on my body to show this was a failure of mine, right?
Yeah.
And he doesn't look like a Democrat. Maybe that's or a progressive, and yet he has very, very liberal policies. He wants to scrap the filibuster. He runs on making marijuana illegal, and he's winning by 8%.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. He big Bernie bro. Fetterman is. And you're right. A bit of an anecdote on my part, but my stepdad is a conservative. Nothing like crazy. But he we were looking at Fetterman versus Oz on the news, he saw Fetterman. He was like, oh, he looks like a good guy. Like he looks like a good politician. Like he looks like he knows his stuff. Whatever. I don't really remember the specifics of it. Don't want to put words in his mouth. But it kind of shows that people who are maybe independent, leaning conservative, are definitely going to take a liking to Oz Fetterman, because he looks like a Republican in all honesty, and he right now is destroying Oz. He is destroying Oz, and he destroyed in the primaries. He won every single county in Pennsylvania.
Yes, he did very well in the primaries.
Which was surprising to me. I thought it was going to be tighter. We both knew he was going to win, but we didn't think it was going to be by that big of a margin.
Also because Biden he squeaked out Pennselsvania. I think it was, if not the last state that was contested, it was one of
huge state for him. He barely won it. Yeah. Exactly. And we've talked about this. We don't want to talk about the online activity of these politicians too much, but Fetterman has been utilizing social media a lot in his race.
Yes.
And in this specific race, it's important because he hasn't been going out and doing a lot of rallies or debating because he had I don't know if you mentioned he had a stroke.
We didn't mention a couple months ago. I think in June or July, I want to say, or maybe before that, he had a stroke.
Yeah.
And so he's had heart problems. He hasn't done that many campaign rallies. He's been, Oz has kind of started to campaign on the fact that he's kind of like hiding at his home and Fetterman isn't coming out and doing debates with him. Although he did agree to a debate in late October recently after lots of pressure. So his health is something that has come up multiple times in the campaign, and it is something that is it is valid to a certain extent. To talk about that.
For sure. And Oz has attacked him on this, and he has capitalized on this. He keeps challenging, as you said, Fetterman to it. He was challenging Fetterman to a debate. Fetterman couldn't obviously debate because of his health problems, and that I think Oz hoped it would make Fetterman look weak, but again, we've talked about it's hard to make a 6'9", built like a brick house guy look weak. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, that election is one that we can both confidently say Fetterman will probably take the win there.
I believe so. And again, just going back to the campaign strategy, Fetterman is, how do you describe it on Twitter? He's edgy, he's funny, he's tapped into the meme culture, right? And Oz isn't at all.
He's tried though. He tries
and it really it
backfires.
Honestly. Normally what happens is Oz tweets something, and then Fetterman retweets it and gets 20 times the amount of likes and coverage. So it doesn't totally work for him.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is a race to watch. Again, Oz is backtracking on some of the things he said. For example, abortion.
That's a big thing. That's a big. I think we'll focus on that on almost every race here. That is the big thing I think people should look out for. How much Roe v. Wade is playing into this election, because it's really energized the Democratic base and also independent centrist people too who disagree with it. So yeah, that's been really good for Democrats in fundraising and campaigning.
And also it's important to note that for Fetterman, around 90% of people registered as Democrats or at least say they're going to vote for him, while only 7 in 10 Republicans are breaking for Oz. So
okay. Oh, yeah, exactly.
They say he's not right-leaning enough, right? So at the same time, some of his supporters want him to move more to the right, but at the same time, on abortion issues, he must move kind of more to the left. Yeah. It's a weird balancing act.
Oz has, but the last thing I'll say on this is Oz has definitely struggled with messaging in this whole race. In his primary debates, I was actually surprised he won because he's the only thing he would mention was that, I'm the candidate that is supported by President Trump. I was endorsed by President Trump, and that can get you past primaries, but that isn't going to get you past Fetterman.
And recently he's actually tried to distance himself a little bit from Trump, even though Trump has, I think he's campaigned for Oz 2 or 3 times now.
Yeah.
So that'll be interesting to watch. Also, this race is more specially interesting because I think Fetterman is running on less kind of like actual policies, honestly, and more on, look, I'm just trying to do what's best out here. It's more on values, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Attacking Oz and not actually being from Pennsylvania and living in New Jersey his whole life and all of these things. So it's a race to watch out for.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so let's talk about Mark Kelly. The Mark Kelly race versus Blake Masters. I got his name right this time?
I think so, yeah.
Yes, let's go. This is an interesting one. So right now it's a very tight race. Blake Masters has kind of pulled from behind. Had a lot of fundraising recently. I think he has got the gap. He's reduced the gap from 8 points to 4 points, and then I think it's even more now. So it's pretty close. Mark Kelly still has the edge. But it's interesting. Mark Kelly is another one of these guys, similar to John Fetterman, where people in Arizona view him as, a more conservative or, right-wing Democrat, which actually he is. He is more like that.
In this case, I think he is more right-leaning. Right?
But he plays into that. He plays into that to a point where it is. It's almost. Not untruthful, but he plays into it for sure.
It's kind of a marketing strategy.
Yeah,
right?
Marketing major over here.
Sorry.
But yeah, exactly. It's definitely an interesting strategy. Which kind of brings us, do people care about the policy, or do they care about how they look? But regardless, I kind of wanted to talk about Blake Masters because I was looking into him. He's young, Harvard or Stanford educated. Mm-hmm. He kind of represents this new class of Republicans, the Madison Cawthorns, who actually isn't going to be a politician anymore, right. But and the Josh Hawleys as well. Josh Hawley reminds me of Josh Hawley a lot.
You could put them all in the same kind of Trump lineage basket.
Yes,
right?
yes.
They all kind of talk a little bit like Trump. They talk about him a lot. There's a lot of them say the election was rigged. That this is the 2020 presidential election. Yeah. So I think you could categorize him as one of those as well.
Yeah, for sure. That's just kind of all I had to say on that. But I just had to
also, just want to add on to that. Blake Masters is also this was circulating a lot a couple of weeks ago. His stance on abortion, again, this will continue coming out. This race I think can be fairly characterized as a referendum on abortion. Yeah. In general, that's really what this is about. And he is backtracking to a certain extent on this. He had new ads now saying, maybe abortion, we're trying to protect families. He was trying to frame it differently than he used to frame it. And I think this is just something we're going to continue seeing, and we'll see if that works out for the GOP. Yeah.
And then next race, Warnock versus Walker. That is in Georgia. Mm-hmm. That was the biggest swing state for Biden last election. It was huge. And Warnock won with Ossoff, but that was a special election for Warnock, so now he's back at it again. He's facing a much more difficult opponent than he did last time around. He is the guy he's facing is another kind of up and coming star in the GOP. Trump has been praising him a lot. He is able to reach out to the black vote in Georgia a lot better than other candidates have. And I think the GOP is realizing how important the black vote is in Georgia. That's what won Biden the election. Mm-hmm. So this is a huge race. It's 50-50 right now. I think it's like a 50 point. I don't know the specific number on it, but I know Walker's winning. So Democrats are losing right now, but it's so close,
And this is also, we need to talk about this. The Senate is 50-50 right now. Of course, the vice president, who is a Democrat, will split that vote to 51-50.
Yeah.
So Republicans, if they want the Senate, they really, really need this seat. And this is the one they're looking at the most just because it's so close. The other ones, the GOP has a chance in the Senate, right?
Yeah.
Again, like a 30 to 40% chance. It's a decent chance.
Yeah.
But this is the one that they're very much counting on.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
They're pouring money into this race. They're pouring time and effort and everything.
Everything
they've got.
I think Chuck Schumer's running down there.
Yeah.
But yeah, exactly. This is probably at least right now the most important election, because all the other ones, I'd say this one and the Mark Kelly race against are those are the two probably biggest elections right now.
Just because they're closer, right? Is that
Yeah, because they're closer. Yeah, because if you're Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, looking at this and you're like, oh, John Fetterman versus Dr. Oz, 8-point lead. You're gonna focus on a 0.4 loss or whatever with down in Georgia. And there's also a Wisconsin race in there. I put it down in my notes. I kind of forgot a little bit about it, but I know that there's a race in Wisconsin right now that is also it's a 50-50 margin too. I don't actually.
Okay. Well, those are some races to watch out for.
Yeah, Brady, can you pull that up? We've got Brady here pulling up the information on the Wisconsin race. But yeah, we'll come back to that. We can circle back.
While we do that, let's move on to Congress. Did you hear about the Alaska ranked choice special election? It was a week ago or a couple of days ago. It really
I still am failing to understand it. So can you please please explain?
So for the first time ever, Alaska instituted ranked choice. That means when you go to vote for a candidate, you, instead of just voting for one, you rank them, right? So it would be 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. And then if a candidate at the end of the day, when they count the votes, doesn't get above 50% of the vote, then the 3, 4, 5, 6 are distributed among everyone else, and whoever gets the most votes wins, right? Whoever gets above a 50% vote, as you keep going down the ranked choice list. The Democratic person who ran, her name is Peltola, won by 51.5% to Sarah Palin's 48.5%. We're familiar with Sarah Palin. She was vice president to McCain, was it, in 2000?
Yeah, she was the reason. Well, according to McCain, was the reason that he lost. It was his biggest regret on that campaign.
Yes, they had some beef, you could say.
Yeah, big beef.
Many on the right had kind of applauded Sarah Palin as being kind of the start of the Trump arc and the Tea Party arc. She was kind of the first one to have a more populist approach, you could call it.
Yeah. Rough around the edges a little bit.
Yeah, you could say that. Well, she lost. She didn't really totally expect it. She was saying ranked choice was good before the election, and now she's calling fraud.
That's definitely a theme we're starting to notice. When you lose, you just yell fraud.
A little bit. So this was, I don't want to say it was unexpected, but it was kind of like the odds were 50-50,
Yeah.
Now, this was a special election because the past congressman who held his seat died. So the Democratic candidate will now hold this seat until November 8th, so just for a couple of months, and then she will have to run again. Yeah. Palin will run again. Everybody will run again who ran in the special election, most likely. And we will see how that goes. A lot of pundits are kind of jumping on this and saying, wow, if a Democrat can win in Alaska, that's a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
I think because it's a special election, it doesn't quite work like that. So,
would you say you're supportive, or what are your opinions on ranked choice voting?
I like ranked choice voting. I think it makes more sense. We know Andrew Yang loves ranked choice voting.
Andrew Yang loves a lot of weird things.
Yeah, not left, not right, but forward. And whatever that means, you can even explain it. I like ranked choice voting. Some Republicans are saying it is confusing to voters. I saw a poll recently that said 85% of voters found it to be not that confusing. They understood it.
Yeah.
I don't know. 15% is a substantial amount for them to say it's confusing.
Well, yeah, for sure.
I would say it is more confusing, right?
I saw, I think it was Tom Cotton or Josh Hawley I think it might have been both of them probably, were tweeting out about, they were saying, ranked choice voting is too confusing of a system for voters to understand, and it's fraudulent. But I would say, the second part, not so much, but the first part, I can see where they're coming from, because it is odd when you're looking at this and you're like, well, there's 2 Republicans, 1 Democrat.
In the top 3.
Yeah, and I can understand why there could be some anger within Republicans about why they lost. So yeah, that's definitely something to watch out for, whether that's going to be ranked choice voting is going to be continuously used in United States elections.
Yeah. I think so. I think it actually makes more sense, right? Voter disenfranchisement and the idea that once you vote, if you vote, for example, for a third candidate in the presidential election, your vote doesn't actually, you didn't really vote for one of the top 2, right?
Yeah.
So this is a way to for people to see how their vote is actually impacting
Yes, exactly.
the election, which I kind of like.
And for people who want to separate from the two-party system, then then this is a great way to it's a great first step. A lot of people
Andrew
who
Yang again.
Exactly. Not left, not right, but forward. Okay, so we were talking about rough around the edges. Sarah Palin, another rough around the edges candidate. Beto O'Rourke.
Yeah,
he's been very active in this Texas election, running for governor. So we're moving away from the senators here. Yeah, he right now is losing pretty badly, as expected, to the governor of Texas right now. So what are your thoughts on
Greg
him?
Abbott? Yeah, I
Greg
think
Abbott,
for the viewers who might not know a lot about Beto, he did run for president in 2020.
Yeah.
How would you have characterized him in 2020? In your honest
Pete
opinion,
Buttigieg came in and stole all of his thunder. That's what happened.
Yeah.
It was a very poor campaign. He actually hasn't held any significant office. He's held state senator.
State senator.
And then he ran for Senate against Ted Cruz. Did a really good job. People loved him. He had the most money poured into a Senate campaign ever. Then he went to the 2020 election, lost pretty poorly. Now he's here. He's doing well. He's had a lot of stuff to kind of capitalize on. We've got climate change problems, like energy.
With the energy. 2019, 2020.
Yeah,
I mean
people were dying because they, it was
the blackouts in Texas. The freezing. Yeah.
Perfect opportunity for him to kind of have something to talk about. And the other thing was the Uvalde shooting.
Yes.
The mass shooting that happened. When was it?
At an elementary school in, I want to say 6 months ago?
Yeah, 6 months ago.
I could be wrong.
Horrible. But so Beto, the big thing that he did, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, so he's been capitalizing on these kind of things a lot, right? He's I would characterize him as a man of action and loud words, right? You see a lot of, if you see on Twitter, if you see on the news and you search Beto O'Rourke, you'll see he was screaming at the police chief and the governor, yelling profanities. He shows like a passion, right? And I think people kind of like that. It's not very politician-like, right? When you imagine Biden like screaming like profanities at his opponents, you don't really see that. But I think it shows the anger and the passion that he has about what's going on, and you can tell he actually cares, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's something Texan voters are looking into.
Yeah, and that's for sure something that Trump really brought into politics. Definitely. Is tapping into emotion, tapping into anger. Bernie Sanders does this a lot too. Beto's been doing a good job of that, but not good enough because he's losing a similar amount to how Oz is losing to Fetterman. So it's looking unlikely that he'll be able to take the governor's seat, the governor house. But it definitely shows a kind of trend in Texas. Texas is definitely becoming, more liberal. Yeah. You've got a lot of liberals from California and the West Coast, other parts of the West Coast, moving to Texas, and you have a growing minority population, which typically votes Democrat in Texas. So although they're not, the United States isn't at the point yet where Texas is a swing state, it's certainly looking like it's going to become one soon-ish.
Soon. Yeah. And let me tell you, I've seen a decent amount of forecasts that expect Texas to be blue, or at least very, very close to being blue before 2030. So that would be game. That would be 8 years. Yeah, right? It's not that much time.
And that could be game if they take Texas. Yeah, that could be game over for Republicans for a while. Obviously, there would always be some sort of pushback, but it would definitely be huge for them.
Yeah. Let's move on to our final race. Stacey Abrams. Do you want to talk about her? This is Georgia.
Stacey, all I know about Stacey Abrams is she is she's excellent at what she does, which is campaigning, getting votes together. She can be attributed to why Biden won Georgia in 2020,
and two Democratic senators,
and Raphael Warnock and John Ossoff.
Yes.
She I was talking about the black vote earlier. She is incredible at getting high turnout, especially with black voters. That's Stacey Abrams, and right now she's running for governor. She's previously run for either governor or attorney general. Attorney general,
it's important to note she was head of the DCC's campaign strategy, so she was like the top dog for campaigning for Democrats. Yeah. In the last couple of years, and now she's stepping down from that. I don't know how you feel about that.
Strategically, I'm not sure that's a great thing for Democrats. She failed in running for office before, and she's proven her value in, getting votes. And especially with something like the Raphael Warnock race, from a Democrat point of view, would her time better be spent helping Raphael Warnock collect votes than, running for office? Because again, she is right now. The current stats are that she is down 4 points, which isn't terrible. But when you're in September, being down 4 points isn't good at all. So it is unlikely she'll be able to pick up those votes, but maybe she will. But yeah, I'm not sure. I think from a Democrat strategy point of view, it's not the best, but obviously she is her own person. She can do what she wants. So.
Yeah, I would kind of agree with that. We'll see what happens in the Georgia races and all others. We're 2 months away from elections.
Yeah.
We still have October, the famous October surprise. Who knows what will happen?
So
anything really could happen.
What are your final predictions? We've talked a lot about these elections from a Democrat point of view.
Yeah.
Mainly because, it's been a big upset. Like we've kind of assumed Republicans are going to come in and sweep everything. And now these states or these Senate races are really starting to tighten up. Mm-hmm. And also, again, another reason that a lot of these have been from a Democrat point of view is also because a lot of these races the incumbents are Democrats. So it's easier to kind of look at that from that point of view.
And I think also from a GOP point of view, this race kind of determines a little bit how close you get to Trump for the 2024 elections, which everyone expects him to run. Right?
Yeah. Oh, we'll be talking about that.
Yeah. If you see a lot of Trump endorsed candidates starting to lose, then maybe you can see the tide changing a little bit, right? Maybe some GOP senators will start not supporting Trump as much, trying to distance themselves from him. I'm not totally sure what will happen. I think if I had to bet money on it, I think Democrats win a majority in the Senate, probably even pick up 2 to 3 seats.
Which would be huge for them.
Which would be huge, yeah. And in the House, Republicans will take somewhere between, a double-digit amount of seats.
Yeah.
And we'll see, yeah.
Next episode, we're either going to be talking about in-depth 2024 elections, maybe something else because we've just kind of talked everyone's ear off about elections.
Policy,
maybe some foreign policy, maybe Taiwan and China.
Ukraine and
but,
Russia.
we also are hoping that our next episode is going to be an interview with a member of the Northeastern University Conservative Republican Club, I believe is the name. Hopefully we'll be able to get their insight on, 2022 election, 2024 election, and some other things, kind of get their point of view. We talked a lot about these races from a Democrat we talked about it from the Democrats' point of view. Mm-hmm. So it'd be good to get the Republican perspective. So yeah. Yeah,
that'd be interesting. Again, thank you for listening to the J&J podcast. Joe Rogan, watch out. We're coming for your seat. And have a great day. See you next time.
See you next time. Oh, yeah. Follow our socials. The J&J. Oh, yeah.
What are
the socials? Are the Jack and Josh Pod on Twitter. On TikTok. Just here, follow the Instagram at J&J Pod.
Jack and Josh Pod. Follow the Instagram username.
Yeah, and we'll have a link tree in the bio. We will have a link tree in the bio where you can see all of our social medias. I'm supposed to be the social media manager, so I should probably have memorized the names.
Supposed to be.
Yeah, well,
And we'll be on Twitter, on YouTube, on TikTok, everywhere. This podcast will be on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Hopefully someday soon once we figure.
They'll be on. This one will be on YouTube.
Yes,
for sure. So make sure you like and subscribe, hit the notification bell, comment down below your favorite part, and yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening. Goodbye.